All right. Welcome back to Hanging with the Hoopers podcast. Today, it's just yours truly, Andrew. Tim is not joining us today, but I'm joined by a very special guest, Autumn Fleck. Autumn, excited to have you on. This is our Energize sponsor podcast. So you're sponsoring our Energize conference coming up, and I'm going to let you share a little bit more about yourself and your company, but thanks for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me. So as you already mentioned, I'm Autumn Fleck. I am the owner and CEO of Precision Signing Agency. We are the nation's #1 rated national loan signing agency. So we help real estate attorneys, title companies, lenders, home builders, realtors help close loans across the nation, all 50 states. We also can help internationally on RON platform. We have an in-house RON team, so we also help with those international sellers.
That's awesome. Thrilled to have you on. Thrilled to have you joining Energize. But before we dig into like some of your background, your company, what you do, and all that stuff, and very important what you do, by the way, to provide that service in our industry. So I'm excited to dig into that. But where are you coming? Where are you coming from in the world today? Where are you joining us from?
Right. So we're actually based in Portugal at the moment. So I started the business in North Carolina. So the bulk of my clients are up and down the Eastern Seaboard, the Mid-Atlantic. Moved to Colorado, to a RON-friendly state, since RON is still not law in North Carolina. A lot of people may or may not know. And I wanted to make sure that we provided a full service offering with Precision Signing Agency. And then when COVID hit, we saw an opportunity to have geographic arbitrage. We are all international, we are all what's the word I'm looking for? We're all remote. So we don't have a brick and mortar. And we never have. So I encourage my team to travel, live their best life, and work from wherever they see fit.
Yeah, that's awesome. COVID changed so much. And it was funny. I was reading an article the other day about like big CEOs, like trying to get everyone back in the office and stuff, but it changed a lot. So you're in Portugal. That's awesome. Beautiful. You must be like, are you near the beaches? Are you more like what part of Portugal are you in?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of a journey. We've been here for a couple of months now, 4 months. We started out in the northern part of the country. Most people know Porto and Lisboa, the two major cities. So we were about an hour north of Porto to start, about 30 minutes south of the Spanish border, a really gorgeous part of the country. Wasn't the best fit for us, I think, as far as being an entrepreneur, having that sort of energy around, having access to international schools for our two kids. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old. It was really important for us to be in a place that we felt kind of welcomed and around like-minded individuals. So we came down to the Algarve, or Algarve as it's known, which is the southern part of Portugal. And there are a lot of expats here, mostly known for Brits and Irish. Fewer Americans here. Definitely learned a lot about British culture. And I had to go to a trivia night the other night, actually, and I felt woefully underprepared because I'm not really hip on the British pop culture.
That's
We're so
funny.
used to
Like
American
the
pop culture being out
Beatles
there.
and yeah.
No, that would be the easy stuff. But they asked us
Right.
about like cartoons and food and things that we're not really exposed to. But it's been a good fit down here. It's 300 days of sunshine coming from Colorado. That was one of the biggest things that drew us there, was those 300 days of sunshine. And that's really important to me. And I feel like we're a little bit on vacation right now. I'm looking forward to getting a little bit more settled. So hopefully that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll feel
Yeah.
more settled where we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I mean, it's you got the kids, you're experiencing a new culture, a new country, and when it comes to trivia night, I've always said I go with a crew because I'm good at like history and geography, but get me in pop culture and music and all that, and I'm lost. Yeah. Anyway, so
Same.
that's
It was
awesome. You got to build
actually
that core group. You got to kind of get those people like who are my Irish, my English, and make some friendships and
well, and it was a local DJ that was hosting it. So it was a lot of like music based, and I was for sure very lost. There was this group of rowdy British guys, probably in their like 60s or 70s, and they weren't even with our group, but they were killing it at the trivia. So I think I was also of the wrong generation.
okay, boomer. All right, very cool. Yeah. So sometimes it's shocking, right? People take it very seriously. It's a serious pastime. But I'm over here sipping my coffee. It's earlier here than it is there. We were commiserating before we started that it's raining in both places. So the humidity's high and the rain's coming down. But anyway, are you a coffee person, energy drink? Like what gets you up and going? What's your go-go juice?
I love tea. I know I'm probably an old lady. My daughter, who's 8, also loves tea, and she asked for tea with milk the other day, and someone was like, "How old is she?" like this was a bad thing. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm an old soul, but I really love a really good chai. Chai lattes are great, but they're usually full of sugar. So just a big fan of high quality tea. I like tea because you can drink it all day. Got to turn off the caffeine for me around noon, or I'm going to be up all night. I'm pretty sensitive to that. So I
That's
was
awesome.
joking before we chatted that I don't even know how I made it through early parenthood, motherhood without coffee, but somehow I did.
You know what's funny is growing up, my dad always drank tea, black tea, Earl Grey, whatever, English breakfast. And it was, he always swore that coffee gave him heart palpitations. And so he couldn't drink coffee. So it's funny, but I love coffee. I mean, I'll drink it up until bedtime and all day. And sometimes we're burning the oil on the road doing what we're doing. And it's just, you need it. You need it. So anyway,
Well, it's espresso culture over here too, and I definitely feel left out because it's you don't want an espresso after dinner. I'm like, no, it's 9 p.m. I don't want an espresso after dinner. I'll never go to sleep if that's the case. So it's definitely big over here.
bouncing off the walls. I love it. Well, let's jump into like what you do, precision signing agency. I don't know about you, but I did not wake up one day and say, I want to work in the real estate trifecta title, mortgage, real estate. I didn't wake up one day and say that. I kind of got drug into it by someone who we all know very well, aka Lil Hoop, Tim Hooper. But I love it now that I'm here. So what's your backstory? How did you get into, you said you started in North Carolina, but how did you get into real estate signing services specifically? Like, what's your backstory?
Great question. So I was in a completely different industry. So I had worked in the wine industry. I worked on the supplier side, so directly for the winery. I worked for 3 wineries out of California and really loved that side of the business. I had worked in hospitality growing up and started going to wine tastings and wine dinners. I was actually invited to a wine dinner by a chef who used to come to the bar that I was a bartender at. And I didn't realize that there were people who actually got paid to host wine dinners and these sort of events. I said, wow, this is really cool. Like, I love learning about it. And so that sort of piqued my interest. And so we ended up moving to Napa Valley, and I worked for one of the best Napa Valley wineries, high end Napa Cab, and really had an amazing experience there. I worked on both the hospitality side, and then I also did national sales. So I traveled all over the country for about the 18 months that I was there and really fell in love with wine. During that time, my husband had a position that took us to West Africa. So we lived in Cote d'Ivoire for a couple of months. And so I had to leave that position, and I had a moment to kind of retool and think about what I wanted to do next. I was lucky enough to find a wine position based in North Carolina, which is kind of unheard of. Yes, North Carolina has wineries, but
More of a
not
bourbon
necessarily
state,
the
right?
reputable ones.
Yeah, more of like a bourbon state if you're asking me, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah, a
speaking to
lot of
my heart here
distillers
with the
now.
wine stuff. I love my California cab.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna have to connect
Anyway,
more on that.
sidetrack. Sorry.
Sidetrack. I didn't know that about you. Yes. So I worked for another really wonderful cab house out of Paso Robles this time. Fiji Water actually owns 2 wineries. And so I actually worked for Fiji Water and their 2 wineries. And so for 8 years, I worked for them. I covered the Southeast Territory, sales territory, and worked my way up to director of sales and marketing for them. It was really awesome until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, as we all know, was sort of this great reckoning. About a year prior to that, to be fair, I had said, I was so used to this cyclical nature. Like every March, I knew I was going to be here. Every April, I was going to be at this conference or this event. And I was ready to do something different. And so when COVID hit, I was actually furloughed part time. And so I was only allowed to work 2 days a week. But as a director, I had a lot of responsibility. And so I had basically 5 days of work packed into 2 days. But I was also at home with a 2 and a 3-year-old. My husband was home and our nanny was home. So there was a lot of togetherness in our house. And it wasn't a very big house. And so I said, I am used to being able to travel and get out. I need to get out of this house, but it's COVID. What am I going to do? So my husband is the king of real estate side hustles. He had taken courses on note investing, land investing. He had his appraiser's license. He has his realtor's license. We had invested, in offshore and domestically. And so he'd actually taken a course on loan signing. So throughout this process, he had said, well, why don't you just pick up a side hustle? And I'm like, I have a 2 and a 3-year-old in this big corporate job. You want me to pick up a side hustle too? But this was actually the perfect time because I needed to get out of the house. So I kind of just offhand said one day, well, I'll take that loan signing course that you took a few years ago. Do you still have the login and password for it? He said, sure, I'm sure I can find it. So since it was COVID, it was October of 2020, getting your notary commission was delayed because you had to go in person and swear your
Hmm.
oath. And so during that time, I said, okay, well, how am I going to approach this? I know that there are signing services out there, but I also know that in North Carolina specifically, they were doing car side closings, which wasn't a really great way to do refinances. Like papers are flying everywhere. It wasn't really great experience. And so, unlike in states like California, when they had been doing remote closings for quite a while, or mailaways as they called them, I put together a list of 50 of the best real estate attorneys in the Triangle area and surrounding areas. And I love to bake. I am really great at making scones. I call them cookies because they're not exactly like the dry scones that you think of. They're really
Well,
great.
that's good.
Yes.
Normally, I have to wash my scones down with my coffee,
No, these
but
are
these
not
are
those
good ones.
kind. These are
Okay.
really, really good ones. And I mix them up with the season, and you can bake them in bulk. And so I started baking a lot of scones because I said, it's COVID. Everybody has that sign on the door that nobody's allowed in here. Everybody's masking up. How am I going to get past that gatekeeper or even the front door? And so I made my list. I had my spreadsheet. And I'd go out. I went out for 2 weeks while I was waiting on my commission. I didn't even have my commission yet. And I said, hey, introduce myself. Of course, I have warm baked goods. Someone's going to let me in their office. And they did. And I said, hey, this is the reason why you should choose me to go into your clients' homes to do your remote closings. And so through that, I earned the trust of a couple of dozen real estate attorneys in the Triangle area. Finally got my commission. Actually, the day I received it, I already had my stamp, but I had to actually officially have the commission. I had my first loan signing, and it was a bit of a disaster. I'm not going to lie. I was there for like 2.5 hours, and I didn't know what I was doing. But you have to start somewhere.
You get all
So
the questions it's probably like you probably had like an engineer too for the first one, and they were asking every question. So what does
every
this mean?
question,
What does that mean? What does this mean?
yes. And it was late at night. It was late at night, and I made the mistake of turning off my phone or turning on silent because that's what you're supposed to do. Well, my husband got really worried about me because I was taking a lot of time. So he was calling me incessantly, and I didn't know. He was about ready to come over, and he thought I'd been kidnapped or worst case scenario, right?
Man, if he had shown up, ready, loaded for bear, and
He
that
was.
poor
He
first
actually
signing would have gone south even further.
So I worked out a plan so he'd know where I was in the future because it's a little bit intimidating. You're walking into someone's basically their sacred space, but it's not your home. You never know what you're walking into, and I've got some stories for you. However, during in that time, I just intended to do a few signings because I that's all I wanted to do. It turns out that first month I think I did 87 signings to be exact. So I caught the bug. I was able to go
Lot.
in and make these little 20, 30-minute micro connections with these people who at the time were seeing no one. They weren't even letting their family in their house. And so it was awesome. I loved what I was doing. I was really great at it. I have a great attention to detail, highly organized. And so it kind of ticked all those boxes. And I got to drive around. So I got some time to myself. And so I started really saying, okay, I think this is more than just a few signings. So
Right.
I signed up with all the major signing services out there, all the platforms, and over the course of the next 10 months, I completed 1,200 loan signings. So that's how I got my start in this industry.
It's like drinking out of a fire hose, but you learn quickly. So it sounds like your background in hospitality and in the whole wine world and all of that really has served you well in making the transition into this very it's interesting in real estate, right? Because when you're doing these signings, I mean, real estate is one of those industries where it's not all in house. You got all these different vendors and people attached into the transaction somehow, and you got to manage all these expectations and keep them happy so that you can get the next deal. But then, like you said, you're also working with maybe a first time home buyer or a savvy investor. You have everything in between, residential, commercial, all of that. Like it's probably very different every time, but you're also hurting a lot of cats at that point, right? And making sure everyone's happy and satisfied. So from like your early journey and drinking out of the fire hose, what's one like major lesson you learned that, and I was going to, before I ask that, actually, let me back up from the first signing. That was a little traumatic. Do you still remember the client's name? Don't tell us the name, but do you still
I
remember the
do.
client's name?
I do. I actually am still friends with several of the people that I met during that year. Again, so I've moved a ton. This is my my 35th move at this time. I've lived in multiple states. I've lived out of the country. I've worked in a lot of different sectors. I've actually worked in real estate. I worked for a few real estate investors when I was in college. I've invested myself. We have great friends that work on the commercial and residential real estate side. And so I always felt like I had some sort of connection with someone. And I think for me, that was always like the fun part, is finding these little micro connections, because there's so few degrees of separation between
Yeah.
most people if you really find that. And I think I had that's a gift that I had, of like finding that like point of connection, and just creating this really great experience. And you have to do that in hospitality too. Again, when I was hosting wine tastings in Napa Valley, you've got an hour with these people and they're on vacation and they're drinking wine. So it makes it a little bit easier. Their guard is down, but really just making this memorable experience for them. So I really, when people say, oh, how did you get into the title? That's not really transferable from what you were doing. So it actually is.
There it
It's
is.
so
Yeah.
transferable. And during that process, I was working for these other signing agencies, right? Like anyone that does a few signings and might have a few that they can't do themselves can call themselves a signing service. So they're not all created equal. There's probably a couple hundred out there. There's some bigger ones and there's the ones that people know the names of. But I realized over those 10 months, while I was doing a lot of direct work, and I loved those. Those were my great relationships. And those were I actually started out when I launched Precision Signing Agency. But I realized there was this deficit in the way that the loan signing services that existed treated their notary signing agents, the way that they handled their clients. And it wasn't a hospitality first industry. And so when I pivoted, I realized that I had this unique gift coming from outside the industry, because I had a completely different perspective of how to actually do business.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of answer that. I mean, the lesson that I hear from that, and I saw the same things you're describing coming in from outside, but leading with client experience, leading with better communication, leading with I would say, a client centric focus. Because in this industry, like historically, it's everyone looking out for me, mine, and mine, and it hasn't always been the most abundant mindset, the most like client centered. Let's put ourselves in the client's shoes, because in a lot of ways you can't, right? The client might be upset about something, but hey, if this is a part of the transaction, we can't change it. But it's rarely about what you're saying. And it's always, well, I say always, but it's most of the time about how you actually say it. Not about what you're saying. It's about how you say it, how you lead with it. So I love that from a lesson perspective. So
Well, not
what
only
are
how
your,
you
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, Andrew, not only how you say it, but actually how you make people feel. And I
Mhm.
can tell you that through the process, there were a few instances, and I was put in a very uncomfortable situation more than once. As a female walking into a single man's home, like it's a different experience than if there's a male signing agent going in. And I remember distinctly calling one of the signing services and saying, "Hey, I do not, for the life of me, want to go back to fix whatever needs to be fixed." Actually, there was nothing wrong with the loan package. It was a reverse mortgage.
Mm.
And the gentleman was elderly and his handwriting wasn't steady. And the lender wanted a more steady signature. And like, well, he's going to sign the way he's going to sign. Anyway, to make a long story short, I remember calling the signing service owner and just saying I was highly uncomfortable and I don't need to go into the details of what happened. And she didn't care. She didn't care. And I was asked to go back. And I remember I had pretty tough skin, but I was in tears after that signing. And I vowed, this is before I owned Precision Signing Agency, that I would never put anybody in that position again, that I would take care of the notary signing agents. And that above anything else, yes, there are signing services that focus on the client experience, but they don't appreciate the notary signing agents and the people that are actually doing the work. We all know stuff rolls downhill in this industry. And certainly the notary signing agents get a lot of crap, and a lot is blamed on them. And I know because I was on that side. Luckily, most people weren't blaming. I did a really, pretty great job, low error rate, all that sort of stuff. But I think having that perspective and saying, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you do for us. Hey, here's a gift card for going above and beyond. Or, hey, you just had a baby. You had a fender bender. That happens a lot. We've completed over 50,000 signings now in the last 4 years. There's a lot of life that's happened. And there's people that have done thousands of signings for us. And so truly taking care of our 1099 contractors, our notary signing agents, is something that's so important to us. And I think you see that over and over again with our reviews. We're chasing 1,000 5-star reviews here by the end of this year, which I'm hoping that we're going to get to. But a lot of that has to do with how we treat people and everybody in the transaction.
I love that you went there from the standpoint of leadership and you had a leader who didn't take your feedback and the uncomfortable position you were put in and just said, nope, go do it. You got to do it. Believing at your core as a leader now with your business that you keep your people out of harm's way. And yeah, you shared an extreme example of some creepy dude crossing boundaries and crossing lines, right? In a certain situation, but keeping our people out of harm's way is way more than just that, right? Of course, that's a drastic instance where you should, as a leader, do that. But there are other things too. I think playing to people's strengths, knowing which person to plug and play based on relationship, right? And knowing how to set your people up for success probably plays a pretty big role. But as you transition from learning the industry inside and out, working for someone, and then moving into owning your own business, what does that look like now for you with the day to day? Tell us a little bit about Precision Signing Agency. Like you have competition, right? You have people you're competing against. How do you sell? How do you compete and earn business in a market that takes time and trust?
It's funny you bring up competition because competition's great. It's so healthy to have. And there's been instances where there's other competitors that haven't liked that competition, right? Especially at conferences when there's not a ton of other signing services around. I see it as healthy. At the end of the day, people do business with people they like and people they trust. And for me, building those connections and those relationships has been so paramount in what we do here at Precision. I like to tell people, like, yes, I know at the end of the day we're a vendor, but I truly want to be a partner. And I have a great example. I just posted on LinkedIn about this actually. We had to walk away. I shouldn't say we had to. I chose to walk away from a great, on paper, partnership because it wasn't in alignment with our business. And part of that was being treated more like a vendor than a partner. And in everything that we do, I tell people we have service before self mentality. We take accountability and ownership in what we
Mm.
do. And we're looking for those client partnerships. There's a lot of friction sometimes when again the client doesn't come to us with that, and say our retention rate is really high. There's very few clients who we don't do business with even over these past 4 years who choose not to do business with us anymore. That's low. But honestly, some of that has been in part us. And I feel like I am less hesitant to speak up now that we're 4 years in to say, hey, this isn't a good fit for us. Like my team's morale is so important to me. My team's health. We are a completely remote team. And I'll tell you, building culture on a 100% remote team is challenging, but I feel like we've done a darn good job of that. We have 15 people that work for us now. We're dispersed all across the country. Obviously, I'm overseas as well. So it's really important that their mental health, that they're happy, that they're excited to come into work. And anything that puts that into jeopardy is a no-go for me.
Yeah, I think building culture is exactly what you just said. Caring about the people first, right? And people are always when there's a mantra to me in leadership that says clients first at all costs. I think that's the cart before the horse. And for me, it's always people first at all costs. You keep your number one asset, your people, in the fold, take care of them, and a byproduct of that is an amazing client experience. The buy-in that your team can then have to go to the market. And speaking about firing clients, that's I think in this business, Tim and I, as you know, do a lot of sales coaching and work with teams on going after new business. And I think all of us, if you're listening to this and you work in sales, the clients that there's certain clients that give you business, but the fallout every time from the business that you get is not worth the juice is not worth the squeeze of the business relationship, because again, like you said, Autumn, it's you're my vendor, you're beneath me, or we were going to always give you a hard time about things that are required in a transaction because we just think it shouldn't be required even though it's a law, right? Like there are those partners in this industry, I think sometimes, and I say partners loosely in this, a good partner that takes care of the relationship. So I love that you said you had to let go of a relationship. You kind of had to fire that client because it wasn't in alignment, right? And without getting into the nitty gritty, you just share that it wasn't right for you and your team. And I think that's a big way you can show you can put your team first from a leadership perspective. A big part of why you're successful with your company, no doubt. Thank you for sharing those examples. Of course, you cover all 50 states. You do signings. You do an excellent job. You're a preferred or partner and vendor with FNF, right? And
Yes,
along with some of the other sponsors we have coming to Energize. This is your first time coming. So we have this year, we actually have quite a few first time sponsors. You, some folks in the AI space, but being that you haven't, have you attended Energize in the past? I don't know that you did.
I
This is
haven't.
your
I was
first
out of
year,
the
right?
country last year. I was supposed to be there,
Okay.
but I was in Costa Rica. So
How dare you go to Costa
I
Rica instead of
know.
coming to
I know.
Energize?
The
Man,
weather was so nice in Costa Rica too. And I remember I was like, oh, could I swing it? And I'm like, no, I have to cut my vacation short. So I'm glad that I had more advance notice this year. I actually
you know
didn't
what?
find out about Energize until like a month before it happened last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I'm just being a little facetious, but
I know you're
I may
messing
go
with me.
book a ticket to Costa Rica myself. It's on autopilot with the team once we get going. I don't need to be there. No one needs to see me walking the halls.
No one will notice,
No
right?
one will notice. No one will notice. No, that's awesome. But we're really glad to have you. So, just from what you know about Energize, what excites you about coming to the Mid Atlantic? You're going to be at both Maryland and Virginia events, right? So,
I
what excites you
absolutely will.
about it? What are you looking forward to?
Well, first and foremost, I have so many of my existing clients that are going to be there, and I love getting that FaceTime with people that I know and love and that we've done business with. So much growth has happened. Actually, our number one state as far as where our clients are based out of is Virginia, moving into Maryland, even though I started in North Carolina. Some really great advocates and fans of Precision Signing Agency. That's actually where our fidelity approval came from, both on the direct and the agency side. Certainly seeing them and reconnecting, that definitely fills my bucket. Getting to meet new people that I perhaps have walked into their office, because I guarantee I probably walked into their office. This is how I started my business. I probably had scones with me. We've got more advanced point of sale and swag these days, but certainly connecting with those people, the energy of what you all are bringing, hearing, the speaker, certainly Ryan Estes is so exciting. I've been started following him on LinkedIn, and I'm really hyped to hear him speak, and really just being in the room with energy with you, with Tim. I know Sam Trimble's also speaking, and I've learned so much when I've attended other sort of ancillary events, either at Alta or had those speaks. So I think just learning to take things back for my team as well. I certainly am excited about some more AI talk. I know you and I have talked about that, and I've done a better job. I've been a better student about really upping my game about how we can incorporate that into our business. So I'm just excited. I think the conferences and these sort of events really light a fire under me as well. And I love this industry that we're in.
Yeah, it's great. All right, so you're gonna be there. You're gonna have your table and booth set up. If someone stops by your table, what conversation do you hope they start with you?
Well, right now, a lot of people are super interested about Portugal, so I probably will get a lot of questions about Portugal, and I'm happy to share that.
They all want to
And
move there
certainly
too. They all want to
they
go.
they do,
Yeah.
or they want to know how they can, run a business or work remotely. And I have this philosophy that like we shouldn't wait until we're retired to live the life that we've always wanted to live. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I can give you the nitty gritty of the hard and the challenging parts. I have grown more in the last 4 or 5 months in this experience than I have in years. It's definitely a soul awakening having this experience, but it's also changed the way that I'm leading, and it's changed the way that we've grown. So I hope that they ask that. That's a great connection point. But also, why partner with Precision Signing Agency? Like, if you're most of the time when I talk to potential clients and partners, they say, "Oh, I have a signing service." I'm like, "Do you have loyalty to them? Do you love them?" And 9 times out of 10, no, it's like, they're all right. I said, I want you to have loyalty. I want you to be like, we work with Autumn and her team, and we don't want to work with anybody else. And so I think just starting that conversation and talking about the white glove experience that we bring to this industry, we really truly care about the transactions as much as you do. We care about the realtors that you get business from. We want to make sure that you can continue to get business. We've started partnering with people on model home closings. And our attorneys and our title companies have come to us, and we've put together something really awesome and custom for them to be able to help them grow. So I think those connections and thinking about how we can influence and help grow their business too is so important to me. So I want people to come to me and ask me like, hey, how is me plugging in with you and using you as a partner going to help me grow my business? Because I can answer that question, and we can brainstorm about what that looks like.
I love it. That's a great question to ask Autumn. So I hope everyone's taking notes and writing down that question so they can come ask you at the table. And That'll be great. All right, couple things just to leave us with some things. What's your favorite, or what's your favorite either leadership or motivational book that you love, or maybe one you're working on right now that's really resonating?
Well, I'm using it to prop up my computer right now.
Perfect. Yeah.
I have a stack of a lot. I love Grit by Angela Duckworth. Huge fan of Grit. I actually have a big poster about Grit in my office when I normally have an office. So I'm looking forward to getting an office back. I actually just read The Science of Scaling by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Blake Erickson. Huge fan of that. If you have not read it yet, highly, highly recommend it. It talks about raising the floor in your business, focusing. And honestly, I took that. That's part of my kind of stepping away from that partnership that I talked about was from this book of like, I know in my gut, I've got to raise the floor and this is falling below it. And it's those hard decisions that you have to make, whether in staffing or your partnerships and decisions that you have to make. So again, that's just resonating with me because I love that. There's a ton of them out there, but I love nonfiction, kind of self-help, that sort of genre. So
Same.
if it's out there, I've probably read it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had a goal. One of my New Year's resolutions a few years ago was to read some actual fiction and kind of like expand my imaginative
Did
mind,
you?
and I just couldn't do it. No, I
I
just
can't
couldn't do
get
it.
into it. I can't
Yeah.
get it. What's your favorite book right now?
This one right here, "Questions Are the Answer" by Hal Gregerson. So we read
Okay.
this as a team
Questions are the answer.
for kind of like a mastermind over the summer. And in all fairness, I just listened to it because I drive. I'm all over on the road, like
You're an audio
crazy.
guy.
So I listened to it, but now I'm actually reading it because for me, pairing those together is more impactful. And there's just something about a cup of coffee and 30 minutes in the morning of quiet to just crack a book and read some pages. And I was going to ask you, you're a business owner, busy mom, wife, right? Living overseas, coming back and forth, doing like how do you find time to do that self development? Like, what's your process? When do you find the time to do it?
So when I travel, actually, so it's been a little wild. I've been back in the United States 3 weeks out of the past four, which is not at all what I anticipated when I moved over here. But we've scaled tremendously this year and we're continuing on that path. And so that for me, I've really focused and taken time. Like I read The Science of Scaling literally on my flight back, took all the notes, I put it into Chat GPT, gave the summary that I wanted to at the end of it. So then I think part of moving over here was also the time zone difference is actually to my benefit. The back end of the day is a little bit more challenging, but I have up until 2 p.m. local time when nobody is working.
Mm.
And so I'm able to get up, take my morning slowly with my kids, make them breakfast, get them ready, not be hurried. I was hurried when I was back in Colorado because I was 2 hours behind when our team
Oh,
started.
yeah. You're
And
waking up
so
with a
I
full inbox every day.
You
Yeah.
are, and it's anxiety provoking. And so here I do that. Then I'm able to go work out, go for a walk, go for a run, take a nice leisurely lunch, which is huge over here in Portugal. Prato do dias are amazing. I love seeking that out. We've got an amazing lunch today for €9. Usually includes soup, yeah, a beverage and a full meal. I don't tell me where else you can do that. And then I kind of dive into it. So the back end's hard because I'm usually up working till 11:30, sometimes midnight, but I don't have to set an alarm in the morning. I can get up kind of at my own time. So that's when I
Right.
do the self-care.
I love it. That's great. And again, prioritize the family, prioritize that's the legacy, right? Like that's the future. So it's very important. Okay. Couple last we're coming up on the tail end here. One fun little question that I like to ask. If your team had to describe you using one word, what would it be?
Motivated.
Love it. Cool. All right. Good word. Okay. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where would you like them to connect with you, either social, or how does that work for you?
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Autumn Fleck. You can find me, you can email me directly. Cell phone's in my signature. You can call, you can text me. We do have a Facebook page, but I'm more active on LinkedIn. We also have a Facebook page for Precision Signing Agency there. I got really down into the social dilemma a few years ago and deleted all my socials. So
Yeah,
I've
good for
been,
you.
been
Yeah.
rebuilding them since. So mostly on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, listen, your LinkedIn is where it's at. I love just kind of being singularly focused with whatever platform that you want to try to work on and grow. So, folks, go connect with Autumn on LinkedIn. Autumn, thank you for hanging today with one of the Hoopers. And we're really excited to have you sponsor Energize and come out. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to seeing everybody.
Absolutely.